Hey guys, good morning, good evening. I'm going a bit later than I usually do to go live. And so for those in Asia who I know I have a big following, I'm really sorry it's probably a little bit late. But last minute decided to make a soup, and there's a few reasons why. I was at TNT yesterday, so essentially dropping off my daughter in Waterloo for her to um, start university and grocery shopping. And during this time in the fall, late summer, fall, the freshest ingredients, the best ones, are lotus roots. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a lotus root soup. Few reasons, because I've got stuff already sitting around. And so let me explain why I decided to just do it and make a soup today, right now, and decide to go live and show you guys how I'm doing it. So a few tips about just really getting started. This soup, I've started a series on Chinese soups for kids, for children. And so essentially what this soup is, I'm going to show you how to build it so that it's actually in pieces, and you can pick and choose what's the best soup for you and your family, especially your kids. And so I do get this question a lot about how to start, where to start making Chinese soups for kids, essentially for children, right? And so the FDA and the CDC, as well as the American Pediatrics, I can't remember, professionals, recommending you start foods or soups as young as 6 or up at least 6 months old. And so I'm going to build something that you can start like for a 6-month-old baby. And then you can pick and choose the ingredients that you feel work for your family. But I'm going to show you a combination today and make a really simple one. So a few tips, if you remember from my last post of going live, I pre-blanched pork bones. And so today is going to be super easy. And this is what I mean about people making soups and economies of scale, first of all, so that things are quick and easy and efficient for you. And so one thing is, when I made soup last time, I actually pre-blanched half my bones. And so this is actually what's been frozen in the freezer. And for today, it's going to be 10 minutes to get my Chinese soup up in real-time boiling. And so I'm going to explain to you how to do quick soup. Put it into the thermal pot. I'll explain the thermal pot. That's that one right there. Put it in the thermal pot, and then I'm going to walk away because I actually have lunch in about an hour and a half. And so this is 10-minute soup, pretty quick. The other thing that's quite neat, so there's a few prep things that I've done. The pork bones have been frozen, pre-blanched, pre-washed, and pretty much cooked. And so I pulled this from the freezer, and I'm going to drop this into my soup as is. First thing. The second thing that's a really neat tip that I like to share with people if you want just to make quick soups is, so some of us like to steam corn or boil corn. So I tend to boil it because it's just quicker. And so when I'm boiling corn for a meal, I actually preserve the corn water. And this is from August 25th. So it's been a week in the fridge, which is still good. So I'm actually going to use corn water as part of my soup base. And that will help give us some of the flavors as well. So that's another neat trick. For this soup, super simple. The key base is going to be 3 ingredients. And that's where you start as introducing soups to your kids or babies, if you will, is the pork bones is going to be the base. Lotus roots, which are on sale now because it's kind of ends of season, and this is the best time that they're fresh, plentiful, and cheap. And so the other vegetable or root that's actually really affordable now is corn. And in Canada, end of season, come August, September, is where there's tons of corn in plenty. And so corn's going to be the other one I'm going to use. And I'm going to show you some variants that you can pick and choose on what you want to add to your soup for your child. And so the whole premise of the design is that it is for babies. You can start as young as 6 months up to over a year, depending on the ingredients, and introduce one ingredient at a time. So for example, if I'm going to make this soup today for my baby, I don't have a baby. My babies are 19 and 17. But back then, it's really just one meat, one veggie, right? And that's how I would start. And then I would add another ingredient the next time I made it. For example, corn would be the next one. And I'm going to show you a series of options that you can try when you're creating a very simple Chinese soup like this. And so Chinese soups don't need to be complicated. I know sometimes people think that there's all these weird ingredients that you don't know what they are and I can't access them. But actually, fundamentally, at the very end, you don't need a lot of complicated ingredients, especially for kids. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this. Pork bone, lotus root with corn. And the whole design right now is you have to think about, what am I doing this for, right? And so from a TCM perspective, it's very outcome focused. And that's what you have to think about. So for me, it's raining. It's pretty humid. Even though theoretically in the autumn it is dry, but it is pretty humid. Now I'm feeling very damp. And so what I'm going to skew towards are ingredients that will help dispel dampness. And so to start with that base, my kids, and very safe for children as well as barley. So pearl barley, whether it's fried or raw, and I'm going to go with raw today, and I'll just drop like a handful into your soup, and that'll help dispel some of the dampness. Other ingredients that are really useful for dispelling dampness that pair with this combination of lotus roots, corn, beans, okay? Whatever type of beans you want. It's completely up to you, right? And so my bean selection is quite large. I've got your black-eyed beans. I've got yellow beans or mung beans. I've got red beans. I've got green beans, which I'm not using today. And so essentially for this soup, remember what I said, add one ingredient at a time. If you're doing this for your kids, just to test allergies, whether they're liking the ingredients or not. Today, I'm going to, and dried tangerine peel, just this little piece I'm going to drop in as well. And so today's going to be pretty simple. So I'm going to show you how to make this lotus root corn pork broth in about, it should take 10 minutes. And the reason is because the bones are pre-blanched, and I'm just dropping everything into my thermal pot. So let me explain that, and then I'm going to show you how to cook it. So I know people have been asking me about like what equipment to use and what to cook with. This thermal pot is essentially, let me show you, it's one regular soup pot like this. This is a pretty big one. I think this is a 8 liters. Anyway, one soup pot like this that sits inside a insulated, quite thick outer pot. And so the idea is that when this is heated and it's got liquids in it and it's boiling, it will retain its heat for actually quite some time. And so after this is boiling for about 30 minutes, I'm going to drop this pot into here, cover it. Like, so you see the insulation here? This is the design of the pot. It is meant to be quite thick and insulated. And that's what it looks like, right? And so essentially I drop it in here and I can walk away. So I don't need heat. I don't need a heat source. I don't need energy for it. So it's not like a crock pot where you have to plug it in and keep it cooking. The idea of this is that I just drop it in here. It stays insulated. It stays hot actually pretty much for the whole day. So right now it's like 10 o'clock in the morning in Toronto, Eastern Standard Time. So I'll drop it in. It'll take me, I'll be out of here by like 10:45. Boiling. It'll be in here by 10:45. And then I can walk away for the day. It's going to be cooking on its own, just very gently. And then I'll come back early afternoon and I have soup for tonight. And so for those who are really busybodies, today is going to be like this 15-minute soup, how to do it Chinese style. You can walk away and come back and you'll have amazing soup, right? And so that's really the idea. All right, so what I'm going to do is start this on the stovetop to start cooking it. And one tip for those who are just joining is what I do is actually preserve corn. This is corn water when I was cooking corn for another dish. And I actually save the corn water. So I'm going to use this water for my soup as a base, right? And so that's essentially one quick way to get some flavors in, but also to not waste. So that's going to go in there. And so what I do is like label, don't forget like labeling. So I love labeling. It's the neat OCD freak in me is just label your corn waters. If you're making like scraps, I actually do that with scraps as well. And so this is kind of just like a bit of scrappy cooking, but at least not wasting anything. So I have 2 of these where I boiled corn. I made the corn for another dish and I saved the water because I knew I'm going to make soup. And I make soup almost like every other day, right? And so you can also use this for teas, certain type of teas. Corn water is actually really flavorful. So this corn water is just going to go right in like that. And I'm not going to make a lot of soup today because it's just me and my youngest daughter. Okay, that's going to go on here. here and start boiling that. And so that's going, I'm going to add a bit more water. 1 second, I'm going to add another probably 5 cups. And so I've probably got about 15 cups of water in here. So about 3 liters, which is a good amount. All right, so for those joining, I'm making a really quick today. It's going to be a 10 to 15 minutes. That's how quick it's going to be. And the reason why it's quick today. And so I know there's a perception that like, oh, making Chinese soup can be really long and tedious because you have to wash the bones and blanch them and blah, blah, and prepare the ingredients. Today's quick. And the reason is 3 reasons. 1, I pre-blanched pork bones in another previous go live. I made a big batch, economies of scale of pork bones. Blanched them, washed them, saved half, which I wrapped and froze. And I'm just taking it out of the freezer today. And so essentially these bones are ready to go. That's one tip that you can do if you're going to do the work anyway. And so that's just a bit of economies of scale there. And then I will show you how to prepare your lotus roots. And so essentially the lotus roots is up to you how you want to do it. I do tend to peel it, your choice. So I've washed it already, and you can peel like as much or as little as you want. And how you buy lotus roots is that you want to be sure, first of all, that they're firm. And so the supermarket right now, it's like lotus root season. So you'll find them in plenty and on sale. And so again, make sure they're firm. The skin, outer skin is pretty white. It's a root that lives in soil. So it's actually pretty dirty. Sometimes the mud will get inside these little cracks here. And so just make sure you wash it well. And so what I will do is just peel as much or little skin as you want. Some people do eat it with the skin like this. So those on this camera can see like this. And it should like sound crispy, right? And that's how you know that the lotus root is 1, fresh, and 2, perfect for this time of season. All right, and so what I'll do is my butcher's knife. Hold on. My hefty butcher's knife. All you'll need to do with this is essentially just cut off the end like this. And so, yeah, sometimes it is dark, which is fine too. If there's any extra mud inside, just rinse it. All right, here we go, just like that, right? And then what I will do, so 2 choices is how you want to prepare. Actually, how you want to cut this is completely up to you. You're the chef. I personally like it thinner and round like this. Lotus root is very stringy. And so there's a lot of string and fibers that come from it. I tend to like to cut them this size just because I like eating it like that. Completely up to you. And so what I'm going to do is really just cut all of them like this, quite thin. I'll show you. Well, quite thin is all relative. So about this size. And this one's a pretty large one. So you'll probably see like some of the spider webby fibers that come out, which are actually an amazing source of fiber. All right, so just like that. So I've got all my lotus roots. I'm probably going to add, I think I'm going to add 2 today, like this. And then, so lotus root tastes, actually, you can eat them raw. There's not a lot of flavor to them. It's very earthy. Tastes like rooty, earthy, a little bit of potato, but crunchy. How's that? I think that's kind of like a good relation in that it's not very flavorful. It's very earthy brown. It matches very with peanuts. And in soups, it's a little bit sweet. So that's what they are as the taste. And you could eat them. Actually, they're really sweet. And you could eat them raw, although they are very fibrous. So there's a lot of fiber in them, which is really good for you. But people eat them preserved in soups, but soups are best because it really softens it and it actually stays crunchy in the soup. I will do 2 today. So here's my other one. And again, just like this. And lotus roots are actually really common. Even in Western supermarkets, I can see them around. I mean, I know Asians tend to use them more. Koreans will use them in some of their banchans, like their appetizers. And the Asians love them in stir fry. They go in soups for sure. Stews are really great. Okay, so just like this. And by the way, for those who are a little more like conscious, I also save all my scraps. Keep them in a baggie in the freezer. And I will actually put them in a soup bag to use for soups. And so that's just something to think about when you're using ingredients. All right, so this is my second lotus root. And I said, remember I said like how to buy them? They're crunchy, crispy. Make sure they're firm. So when you're buying lotus roots, make sure that there's not a lot of discoloration and they're firm to touch, like really firm on the outside like this. And when they start to like rot, what happens is they will get mushy, they will get brown. And I mean, you could still use them up to a certain extent, but typically I like mine firm and crunchy. Okay. All right. So here we go. Let's cut them all. Again, your choice on what size. So I'm doing them about this size. So for those joining, I'm making a lotus root pork broth today. So the base is really for baby, and I get this question a lot lately about like how to start making Chinese soups for babies. And again, it's just another source of nutrition in a different form. And I know from a Western perspective, it's probably not so common, but like from Asians, I've been making soup for my kids since they were able to eat food and have solids. And so start with 2 ingredients, right? Start with a meat if you want and a vegetable. So literally all you're doing is probably just pork bones and lotus root. And then every week as you try, add 1 ingredient. And I do have a tracker on the website where it's just a guide for parents on making Chinese soups for their kids. So you can check that out. All right. The second thing I'm going to prepare for you is the corn. I'm not a fan of preparing corn for a few reasons. It's because I'm going to show you the technique that I do before. And so the one thing I do with corn is I will preserve the corn silk, right? And so for those who know me, I do try to preserve and conserve as much ingredient as possible. And the corn silk is perfect for weather like this, damp. It's a diuretic. It will help you go pee and eliminate toxins from the body. And so it's not very common that people do save it, but I do like recommend that if you have the opportunity. Oh, I have some dried one over here. Hold on. Let me show you. And so what I have been doing is, remember I told you I made corn like a few days ago. So what I'll do is like lay it out on paper towel like this and just air dry it. And I know it looks really weird and foreign. For me, when I first tried corn silk, it was kind of like, oh, this is weird looking, but it actually is really good for dispelling water. At this moment of your life, you've had more good experiences than bad, or the opposite? Interesting question. In what context are you asking for it, Ibrahim? I'd like to know. Is it like from a cooking perspective? Is it just from a growing up perspective? What's the perspective? And so, all right, so corn silk is really good for teas as well as for soups. And what this is good is for dispelling water. When you're feeling damp, heavy, lethargic in your body, not a lot of energy, one of the good things is it could be that you have a lot of dampness, a lot of water, wetness in your body. And so the whole idea is to dispel that. And so there's certain ingredients. So in soups, it tends to be more mainstream herbs rather than Chinese pharmaceutical herbs, right? Like anything you can find in the supermarket. To answer your question, Ibrahim, so I think in general, it's just slowing down, right? Slowing down everything. Like me today, making this soup live, I feel like I'm rushing, but it's just enjoying it. So by training, I'm an engineer. And so I think quite structured and quite quickly in getting things going. Quit my corporate job, and now I'm just making soup. And so there are different times in our life where you enjoy different moments. And I think when I was younger, I really enjoyed that like rush, go, go, go corporate thing. And now it's just like, even making soups is such a chill event, right? And just spending time with like random people that I have no idea. I've never met you guys before, but it's just spending time just explaining to you what I learned about traditional Chinese medicine in foods. And so, yeah, it's just slowing down sometimes, right? Here's a quick thing that's quite interesting while I'm peeling this is, you know, we think a lot about in the past and the future, right? In the past, we think about what's happened, what's going on. Why didn't I do that? We think about the future when we plan and we make plans. But when you do that, what happens is you forget about thinking about the present, right? And so I think that's really neat to just think about that. Even now, as I'm cooking and enjoying this process, I mean, it's nothing fancy. I'm gonna get scissors, but the whole idea is that I'm gonna just spend 20 minutes here to cook and enjoy the process. I think that's the key thing. All right, so I am enjoying the process right now of shedding my corn silk from this corn here with you, answering your questions. And Ibrahim, thank you. That's a really big question about life. But yeah, I think it's just slowing down. When you think about the past and think about the future, you're not thinking about the present, right? And so that's one of the things that I do, you know, teach and tell people is just like, well, the past has happened, and it actually doesn't dictate the future, and the future is not even here yet. And so sometimes all you do is, where are your hands and feet, right? Just think about, and that will bring you back into present day. Just think about, where are my hands and feet? Can I feel them? And so this is me, right? Like really feeling the corn silk, really feeling the ingredients. And I know it's a little bit philosophical, but I think I really love that question. All right, my corn. The easiest way to do corn, and for some of you who have seen me do it, first thing is just do it in half by hand. And usually physics will dictate that it should be able to do this. And the other trick about doing corn is, and I've said this before in all my lives, is using the end of your butcher's knife. And this is just a quick tip for those who don't do corn. So I like doing my corn quite small so that the kids can eat them in little pieces, right? And just like that, right? So the kids can hold them with their hands and they can eat it. And so the whole idea is to use the base of this and just chuck it into a part and it'll pop out. Let me show you how to do this. It's easier on TikTok now because on Instagram I've got the camera. So it's just basically here. You take the edge of the knife right here and it goes in like that, okay? For those who can't see, and then pop it out like that, right? And it just pops out in the length that you want. So that actually this is quite thick already, but if you want it thinner, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it thinner too. You just go even further in like this and you pop it in and theoretically it just pops out like that. And it just pops out like that. Okay. I know it's harder on Instagram. I'm sorry. And so this is how I do my corn. So for those who just want some tips about not getting corn juice everywhere, and there. Oh, this corn's a bit. All right. Okay. So little pieces like that. I'm probably going to do just one corn today. Oops. Oh my God, it's going right through. And so physics, leverage dictates that the end, oh, there goes the finger. Not quite. I've done this quite a bit. So I kind of feel and know where the knife goes, but based on physics, leverage on the end of the knife right here, you have to hold it. So here's another tip that I've learned from chefs, is that they actually hold their knife right to the edge like this, right to the edge. That's what you want to do if you want good control and leverage of especially a butcher's knife. And when if you're using the corners like this, it gives you a lot more leverage and control, right? It's not a cleaver. Like we don't use it like this because if you're holding it further back, there's not a lot of leverage in terms of control, right? And so that's why you hold it right up front like this. I'm going to show again, right? And then I'm controlling it with the edge of the back knife. And that's how you get a lot of good control on your corn, right? And this can actually go even smaller for those who are curious. All right, so that's the prep for the ingredients. And let me wash my hands. Okay, soup's almost boiling. So let me explain again. Right there. My soup's boiling on the stovetop, right there. Oh, let me move that over a bit. Okay, so today's super easy. I was explaining it's going to be about 10 minutes prep. And some people are like, oh, making Chinese soups is like hard. I'm sorry if I'm missing some of the messages. And some people are like, oh, making Chinese soup is like long and difficult. Not today. Today is because I'm using frozen pork bones, pre-blanched, pre-washed, ready to go out of the freezer. So they're just ready to go. Had to prepare my vegetables. Took about 5 minutes. Not bad. And then I'm going to drop in some of the herbs. Let's talk about herb choices first. So basically, this is almost like multiple choice. And so for those who are just joining, if you're thinking about what ingredients to add to a Chinese soup, it doesn't need to be complicated. Go with, first of all, what your family or what you feel like. This soup design is meant to be diuretic in that it's for humid weather. So right now it's raining in Toronto. I'm feeling really damp, so heavy, lethargic. And so the whole idea is that I want to add ingredients that will dispel water, right? Get rid of the water, help me go pee. That's a big one, right? And so here are your choices. I'm going to show you what they are, right? Anything that matches with lotus roots include barley, dried or fried, all types of beans, your choice. Go with whatever beans you feel like necessary. Today, I'm going to probably do black-eyed beans. You could do hyacinth beans, red beans, green beans, mung beans, yellow beans, whatever beans you want. And then for flavor, up to you again. I'm probably going to go with dried scallops. You don't need to. So if you're doing this for family or for kids, introduce them one at a time. Pick one herb and say, today I'm just going to do barley. Perfect. So it's going to be corn corn, lotus roots, pork bones, and barley. That's it. You don't really need a lot of other things. I am going to add a little bit more just for myself and for my daughter. Yeah, and that's it. Okay, so you're going to watch me put everything in. Super easy. So I actually pre-wrapped this. So essentially the bones look like this. For those who are curious, this is frozen, pre-washed, pre-blanched pork bones. And I was explaining like economies of scale, how I made a soup last week. And I made a big batch. And so this is where economies of scale is amazing. And so this is what it looks like essentially. They're frozen. They've been washed. They've been blanched. You could essentially just drop them into your soup. And that's how easy some of the soup making can be if your work is done in economy of scale. And so because they're frozen like this, I'm just going to drop them in. So make sure your soup water is boiling right there, happily. And then I'm just going to drop in the pork bones. So you can come with me. Just drop them into your soup. Super easy. Even if they're like stuck together like this, don't worry. Drop it into your soup. It's going to come apart anyway. That's it. Okay, perfect. All right, and then we're going to let that bubble a bit more because the temperature has been reduced since I've dropped in some frozen bones. All right. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to let that boil, and then what I'm going to do is drop in my roots. And so I was explaining the roots today is very simple, lotus roots and corn. I haven't done much with it. I don't salt. I was getting a question about whether I add salt or not to my soup. To be honest with you, I personally don't add salt, no other ingredients, no broth, no flavor enhancers, because I like them a little bit cleaner and that I could taste the flavors of the ingredients. However, some people do. I do add salt to like the blanching water. So there's a little bit of salt there. But in general, salt as you need, flavor as you need. There's no judgment. The whole point is to make a soup that you will enjoy and remake, right? Because there's no point in making something that you're not going to enjoy and do it again. And so Chinese soup principle is actually an ongoing lifestyle. It's not meant to be a one-off. The whole point is you're continuously rebalancing first your body with inside, and then you're actually rebalancing with the weather, right? And so some of the concepts on making Chinese soup is thinking about what's my external conditions. So there's three things that can affect externally your body. The first is temperature, right? So whether it's warm or cold, that will affect your yin yang balance inside. The second thing that will impact your body from an external factor is humidity. Actually, we tend to forget that. Humidity sometimes, well, yeah, there's a third one, actually, a fourth one. Humidity is another one. So how humid it is on the outside actually also impacts on what's happening with you on the inside. And then another one is wind. And we kind of forget that if it's a windy day, I tend to protect like my neck area, like this nape of the neck, because you do have pressure points there. My stomach for sure. And I know like my kids or my teenage daughter is always like wearing belly tops. I'm like, cover your stomach. Or your parents will always like, cover your stomach. There's a reason why, right? Part of that reason is because our stomach is actually a really sensitive area. Like our spleen, our whole digestive system actually controls a lot of how healthy we are, oddly enough. And so covering the stomach is a good place to start as well. And then your head, you lose a lot of heat from the head. So there's some key things that like from a TCM perspective that is encouraged to cover up, not for the sake of like coverage, but for the sake of keeping those pressure points not exposed. That's all. So wind, temperature, humidity are all things that are external that can actually come inside us to imbalance our yin and yang in the body. Okay, so that's boiling nicely. What I'm going to do now is add in my roots and my corn. I'm going to just, you can watch me do this here like this. Okay, super easy. Just drop everything in. Oh gosh, there's a lot. Okay, and this portion I'm making is like soup for 4 people or a family of 4. I'm using 3 liters of water, so it's not a lot. And for those joining, it's going to be my thermal pot today, which I'm going to because I need to run to lunch. And so the great thing about the thermal pot is I'm going to boil it now. It's going to just like bubble in itself, retain the heat, and then it's going to go into that pot, which is its home for the next few hours. And then I can just walk away. This pot, that pot is insulated. And so what it does is it actually retains the heat so that it continues cooking, even though I can walk away. And then when I come back after lunch, I'll have a Chinese soup ready for dinner. All right. That's boiling nicely. It's coming along. Not yet. Give it 2 minutes. All right. So today when I do Chinese soup, sometimes there's no necessarily preset recipe. The whole point is, as long as you understand some of the concepts of how to mix and match, go ahead and go crazy, right? And so today's soup is going to be a little bit cooler, first of all, which is why there's pork. And it's going to be a diuretic in that it's going to help me dispel dampness from the body, as well as just eliminate some of that moisture within. And so the base is, you can choose as the chef, right? The designer of your soup is completely up to you. Barleys, beans are your best friends for these type of soups. Any type of barley, any type of beans, okay? Knock yourself out. Peanuts are actually really good, although the one warning I do give with peanuts is if you're doing it for children, just make sure that they're not allergic and that you've tested it a little bit with them first. But peanuts actually in Asian cuisine, especially Chinese soups, super common. And so that's just something, that's just something to keep in mind. Actually, it's something that I actually really like adding to these type of Chinese soups as well. So peanuts, walnuts. I wouldn't ask chestnuts because chestnuts are a little bit warming. And so that's essentially it. All right. So today I'm going to use black-eyed beans, scallops, and dried pearl barley. And again, you can get all of these. So most of the ingredients that I cook with for Chinese soups, you can get at the supermarket, right? They're not crazy pharmaceutical TCM herbs. They're not meant to be, right? And so that's a whole other category when it gets to like true TCM practitioner suggestions. But this is just for like everyday lifestyle maintenance. That's what we're trying to work towards right now. All right, so how we're gonna do this, and again, I know there's no fixed recipe when it comes to making Chinese soups. It's like whatever you feel like, as long as you go by flavor and your own taste. And so the barley, honestly, I'm probably just gonna, I like barley, right? And so again, if you like barley, add more. If you like less. The other thing to keep note for those who are interested in doing soups, let me show you. I've not pre-washed any. Are soup bags. And so this is what they look like. You get them on Amazon, the supermarkets. They're actually called cheese bags as well, cheesecloth bags, whatever you'd like, as long as they're like really thin New Zealand bags like this. And so for those who don't like cleanup and for those who don't really like all the stuff floating around, you can use a soup bag, right? Put all your ingredients in, all the beans, all the barley, everything that's floating and free in a bag and drop it in your soup. But because I like eating the barley and the beans, I'm not going to do that today. Okay, so the soup's coming along nicely. I'll do about 2 tablespoons of this and eat it as part of the meal. And so that's kind of like also my grain supplement for today. I still eat rice every day, but this is a nice supplement or replacement for grains. All right, so just do 2 spoons in like that. That's it, okay? And this is what I mean about like 10-minute soup, because most of my work is done, right? And so, all right, these I'm probably gonna do probably 1 tablespoon. Looks about right. No, I lied. I'll do 2. There. Okay, that's the black-eyed beans. Really good for dispelling water and helping you get rid of extra dampness in your body. And finally, dried scallops. And I do get questions about dried scallops. So what are they? So essentially, they are scallops, but have been preserved a very certain way, dried. And you know, the funny thing about dried scallops is that it smells like Chinese herbal stores. Like when you walk by the herbal stores, it kind of smells like this. Not a bad thing, but it's just an acquired smell for some people. These are small scallops, so they're not as expensive. If you got the bigger scallops, let me show you what I'm talking about while that's boiling. Hold on. Go to my fridge. All right. So When people ask me about scallops, like dried scallops, yeah, this is literally the same seafood. However, from a Chinese perspective, when it's preserved, they look like this. And we actually do eat fresh scallops as well, but the dried scallops are used for soups, stews, dishes, stir fry. And the bigger they are, the rounder they are, the wholer they are, the more valuable they are, right? And so these ones, they're whole, they're round, they're big, and they smell the same, is more expensive than this. So for soups, I tend to use a smaller one. It's a little bit cheaper because these ones actually people use for more like dishes where you can see it. And the Chinese are really particular because they want to be able to see the value of the food they're getting, okay? And so that's why when you see scallops and you see them whole, they'll serve it like inside a melon, and it shows, hey, you're eating something expensive and valuable. Like that's the mindset. And it's quite cultural in that sense. But for soups, you don't need to use, oh, I thought they were Reese's peanut butter cups. No, my God, these are not even close to that. It's funny, I'm on TikTok as well, and someone's saying they thought that these were Reese's peanut butter cups. They're not. They're actually dried scallops. And so these are the baby ones, and these are the bigger ones. And so, no, they're actually savory. Definitely a hint of seafood. You smell it, but amazing as a Chinese supplement. Like it's a very common Chinese ingredient that we use in everything pretty much. But I was just commenting about the value and how I do get questions about how to buy scallops and why they're so expensive. Okay, so you don't have to buy the expensive ones if you're doing it for soups. I tend not to. Okay, you can just buy smaller ones like this, buy shredded ones. You don't have to buy the whole ones, right? Because these ones are whole, pretty much in whole pieces. What you want to get is like even the shredded ones are good enough for soups. All right, so for this soup, I'm probably going to add, I don't know, like this amount. Hold on. Oh yeah, about like 10 of these little things into my soup, and that's about it. And it creates a very savory, that umami taste, right? This is what this gives you. And so if you don't want to be adding salt, if you don't want to be adding additional like broths, think about adding something like mushrooms or scallops or dried shrimp, and it gives you a little bit of that umami flavors. All right, it's going in. That's it. And I'm going to cover it. Okay. And then I'm going to let that boil for 30 minutes. Maybe not 20, I have to leave at 11 o'clock. And then as soon as that's boiling happily for about 20 minutes, it's retained some of that heat. That's the whole point. So there's a heat retention theory here that's going on as well. So the whole point of this pot is that it's retained enough heat. It's mixed everything well together. Then I'm going to directly turn off the stove and move it into that pot. This pot. Okay? So it's a pot in a pot. That's literally what's happening right now. And so this pot is going to cook it for me when I walk away. And so because it's thermal, I don't need heat or energy for it. So it's not like an Instapot where it cooks with pressure. This is actually just cooking with its own heat and time, right? So there's always a resource that you need to be making soups with, right? Whether it's energy, time, whatever happens to be. So with a thermal pot, you're using the element of time and the retention of the heat, the technology. You could do it in Instapot if you want. It'll be quicker. You could do it in the stovetop as well. You could just leave it here and cook it for another hour. But again, it's the use of energy, right? Okay, so that's it for today. Super easy to make Chinese soups. Today I made just a very simple lotus root pork broth for kids. And so I gave you some options on like what you could start with. I'm going to post this on the YouTube as well as on Instagram as well. And that's it for today. So that's how you make a soup in, I took longer, but about 10 minutes, or as long as it takes the water to boil, with all these pre-made things. You like sushi. You like sushi. Do I like sushi? Is it a question or is it you're making a statement? But thank you for joining. If you have any questions, just drop it in the chat. I will always reply to ingredient questions, how-to questions, recipe questions. And I've also got like a guide for parents on starting for making Chinese soups for their babies and kids, right? And just how to build that up and what the mixing and matching is. So again, like I said, you have so many ingredients in the Chinese soup repertoire, right? It's like which herb to use, which bean to use, which, oh, I forgot to add the tangerine peel. That's something else to think about too that will help expel moisture. Last one, I might not drop it in today, but this is what it looks like essentially for those who are curious. is dried. And I know, very like weird, strange ingredient too. For me, when I first started, so I was born in Canada, but lived in Hong Kong in my adult life. So for those people who are just joining, like, what are you using? Yeah, I get it. I was down that journey going, what is that? What are you doing? Right. And so dried tangerine peels, fascinating ingredient. We can talk more about this another time, but also helps dispel dampness and warms the middle, like right here, and helps get rid of phlegm if you're coughing as well. But we can talk about this ingredient next time. All right. Anyways, thanks everybody. And I'm going to drop. I need to run. And as soon as this is finished boiling in about 15 minutes, I am going to move that over there, and then I'll finish the whole video and post the full recipe, the full soup, the full video on the YouTube. All right. Okay. Bye, everyone. I'm just going to see if I can figure out how to turn this off. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. How do I stop? And now, thank you. Bye. And YouTube. Oh, no, Instagram. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.